Holly, tell us about Boudica.
I begin with sigh.
Okay. Okay, if you're going to begin with the site, I'm going to give you and Sharon 7 minutes to talk about this. That's the case.
So the premise, it is based on the English a sort of old English figure, ancient English figure of Boudica, who was queen of the Iceni and who led a significant revolt against the Romans. She's sort of infamous, notorious for having had spikes on the wheels of her chariot, and is a sort of renowned, very, very strong, strong female leader of, quite unusual for most times, really, I think is fair. And the film itself is therefore, as I say, based upon her, and it begins with her being married to a ruler of a tribe who is closely aligned to the Romans and who ends up being killed. And as a result of circumstances, she gets drawn into being the leader of a resistance movement fighting against the Romans. And lo, stuff happens.
And then we have Braveheart. We have female Braveheart. So
we have female Braveheart, except older.
Okay, all right. So, I think Sean, Holly, I will save you from that because I can see the enthusiasm draining out of you as you were given that present.
So Sharon will be able to provide some more profundity, I suspect.
Okay, so let us with
that, I saw that swallow.
That's what happens. That's what happens. Okay, now let's get on to what you guys thought about it, which I'm expecting great things. I think this is going to be amazing.
Wow, it's a tricky one because there's your expectation versus what you actually get. Yeah. And when I looked at it and I thought it looked like it was going to be quite a reasonable production, I thought, oh, this should be quite good. And then it really wasn't. No. I think part of it is people, when they sort of talk about this sort of early sort of British period, especially sort of Boudica bit where the Romans had like moved in force, they had rebuilt like Colchester, they had like the temples to the gods, and I think it was Claudius, they'd had the huge statue, and Boudica's army basically sort of razed it to the ground. They found the head of this statue in the river, didn't they, quite recently, like a few years ago. And it was a major revolt. She destroyed 2 legions effectively, reduced them to their knees, and you wouldn't get that from this particular Boudica. And because as soon as they mention the word druids, they suddenly seem to go a bit nuts, don't they? They seem to think that all the ancient Britons were what sort of mystics, where they sort of did really odd things. Yeah. And part of it's you're thinking, is this based on any research that you've done, or have you just sort of like cobbled a few bits together from sort of folk religions around the world? Because I just look at when they do this sort of the druids, it's just piffle, isn't it?
It's a bit silly.
It makes no sense to me.
Were they painted blue by any chance? They weren't, I suppose. No.
Sean, are you going back to King Arthur?
Yeah, that's what I think.
Everybody's always painted blue.
How did you know that?
They managed to take a fascinating period of history there and reduce it to something that was a little bit silly.
Yeah.
I didn't recognise her as Boudica, to be honest with you. And the whole point of it was that she was a co-ruler with her husband, but the Romans did not recognise women rulers as independent rulers, so that's why she was flogged. Her daughters were, according to history, her daughters were abused, raped, and we don't know what their fate was. And she was flogged publicly and humiliated. In this, her daughters basically, she's arrested and her daughters disappeared. So the outrages committed against her daughters is never referred to. And her flogging was just a little bit, and she was branded, which I don't think there's any record of her ever being branded. But yeah, to me, it's just they took some of the bits of history, knitted them together with their own idea of what they think would be quite fun. And I thought it was just a load of old nonsense, quite frankly.
Yeah. I think the BBC, going back a few years now, I think the BBC or someone, they did like a 3-part about Boudica.
It was ITV.
Always when I was doing history, it was Boudica. It was still, you would call it Boudica. It was still, that's what it was. But you get the revisionists. And I think it was the Iceni, wasn't it? Was she with the
Mm.
Iceni
Yes, she
tribe?
was.
Yeah,
So she was with the
I think that was ITV, and that
Alex
was there was the
Kingston
Alex
played
Kingston one, which you spoke
Boudica.
about when you guys mentioned this the last time.
Yeah,
Yeah.
ITV, not
Again, they did a
BBC.
bit of druidy stuff in there, and again, I'm thinking,
I
was
can't
it
really remember
that
that.
prominent in those
I can't really remember it,
Gantus and
but
the Iceni and all that?
it sounds like it was a little bit better in that.
But
Yeah,
Alex
so
Kingston is consistently good as well. So
Well, to be honest with you, this is something that when they said they had Olga Kurilenko playing Boudica, that made me wonder what was going on here, because to my experience, I don't think I've ever seen Olga Kurilenko play anything other than what she is, like, Ukrainian, like a Eastern European
Yeah.
person with a slightly inflected accent, and I was like, I'm not sure. I have my doubts as to whether she can pull off English, especially English sort of like
Yeah.
war hero.
Well, obviously we don't know how the Iceni sounded. I mean,
But I'm
they
pretty sure
could
I'll be surprised if they sounded
accent.
anything like Ukrainians.
Like Ukrainian, yeah, that's true. But no, I think it had promise, and there was the old element was quite nice about it. But on the whole, I didn't really rate it. I thought to me there was just like too much sort of fantasy knitted in with history, and then they didn't actually present the history very well to make it sound as impressive as it was. Because she did drive the Romans to their knees. So it's only auxiliary legions that she destroyed, and when she was up against the big boys, then the Britain's fighting techniques obviously didn't hold up against the might of the Roman Empire, but she certainly gave them a run for their money.
With the battle scenes, what were the battle scenes like, Sharon? Because you know me, I like my battle
They're
scenes.
poor. There was basically a couple of
Poor,
ambushes in woods. They're
Yeah.
like creeping about in woods and then throwing stones and basically
right,
spears
okay.
at Romans.
Right.
It was just like, these people would not defeat legions. And she had thousands flock to her cause from all around that part of the world, trying to kick the Romans out. It didn't work, but
I think she
people,
got as
that's
far
why-
as London, didn't she? She got as
She
far as
did,
London
yeah.
after sacking of Colchester, or I think it was called Camalodunum or something like that.
Camalodunum, yeah.
Camalodunum, and then she got nearly all the way to. Anyway, no, that's history
Londinium.
thing. We're talking movie,
Okay,
yeah.
okay, no.
The movie, yeah. So I feel to me it was a missed opportunity.
Yeah,
Yeah,
I think
very much
I think
so.
so too. Especially when you give like the stories and you're thinking on how there's some of those things that you could have delved into, like what happened to her daughters, especially because of what you find nowadays, where there's a lot more stuff about how women have been treated that is being attacked. It sounds like it's a missed opportunity, but funny enough, I'm drawing a parallel between. Because from everything you said about this, I would be really, really surprised if this was actually a British production or production that had any British person involved whatsoever. This sounds almost kind of like, how in American fiction you're talking about how there's a certain vision of black people that Hollywood is willing to accept.
Yeah.
This sounds almost like there's
Yeah.
a certain vision of English people and England and old school things that Hollywood is willing to accept, and that's what they've made here, where they feel,
They had a few cast members who had been in Vikings, so I don't know whether they sort of take a little bit of that sort of Vikingness and they want to sort of introduce it to this, because Peter Franzen, who was Harold Finehair in Vikings, he played a sort of Celtic warrior in this, a mercenary who fights with Boudica, and Clive Standen, who plays her husband, he was Rollo in the first couple of seasons of Vikings. So I think that's where they were probably looking for their history rather than to actually history.
yeah.
And
So how many
It
stars?
was British, by the by. It was about country of origin, United Kingdom.
Oh no,
I
no,
know.
no! I'm gonna look. Okay. I'll go for. I'm going to go through the boring deep dive to find out what the production company
Yes.
is later.
Go deep dive.
But for now, what's the star rating? Because if that's a British company, that is disgraceful. What is three? How many stars? Sorry.
2 for me.
Yeah, 2, and it's even a grudging 2.
So it sounds a bit like Netflix content filler, just sort of like content. Like
I was really disappointed. I was hoping
Yeah.
for something much more.
Yeah. Did you get these emails saying in 2 days' time it's going to be coming out? And you're going, oh, okay. And then you watch it and you go, oh, goodness sake.
Could have saved myself some time.
You're like, pull the other one.
Could have watched House of the Dragon again for the 8th time.